On Channels Television, we're turning our attention now to another very serious issue that's been dominating the airways for quite some time, conversations on social media and off social media. And it's one issue that a lot of analysts have said it's been a long time coming that needed to be on the table to be discussed properly. We're talking about the aviation sector now, and I'm being joined on the program by Channels Business News editor Bosno Mofaye as we have a cutting razor on this conversation that will continue to hog the front burners for a very long time to come. Good morning to you, Bosno. It's great to have you on the program.
Thank you. I thought you were going to tell everyone to fasten their seatbelts.
Fasten your seatbelt as this flight takes off, and there might be a little bit of turbulence along the way.
There's a lot of turbulence, Harriet. If you're talking about 200 billion and counting, that's a lot of turbulence. Not mild weather. This is a turbulence that could damage, or has already damaged the local aviation, commercial aviation.
But you see, Bolson, before a pilot takes off, he usually gets flight clearance from the tower to tell you that maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes in flight you might experience turbulence, or you might experience clear skies, depending. So they have an idea of what it is to expect. So how come the aviation industry or the airline operators, they didn't have an idea of what to expect, even though they were operating in, well, mixed environment?
If you look, to understand where we are, we need to go back a little bit. If you understand the first set of domestic aviation owners in Nigeria, they were big businessmen. Aviation licenses were issued the way banking licenses were issued. In the military era, they were given to folks who were big. The late MK Abiola had one. I think some of them had one. So you had a number of folks who were doing commercial aviation. But again, Nigerian Airways, which is the grandfather of everyone, was not the good grandfather. It's dead. So perhaps that is something that is boding ill for that sector. So we couldn't run Nigerian Airways as a country. And those who want to do commercial local flights haven't really been greatly successful, as it were. If you come to the second or third generation, where we are now as far as commercial aviation is concerned, I think we're in about the second or the third generation. The days of Nigerian Airways and Concorde Airlines and all that are gone. Then you had a second generation of Albarca Air, ADC Airlines, which was started by a group of friends, about 3 of them who were engineers, who were technical engineers. And I remembered when ADC was floated way back in '94 and listed on the stock exchange, it was so much noise and so much love, as it were, that this is the beginning of commercial aviation business, and no one ever thought that ADC would become history. But today is a long history, with the first crash of its aircraft that happened in November of 1996. So if you take about 20 years down the line, so about the third generation, where we now have Aero, for example, had survived the second generation. Aero had been run then, having tied to the apron of the former Oceanic Bank. Then you had Arik that came in with a lot of noise. You had Air Nigeria, owned by Jim Ibrahim, that went into turbulent weather and is off the skies. Liso had his own problems. Then Albarca also came to the stock exchange, got listed, depended basically on lifting pilgrims to the Holy Land and what have you, and didn't really survive, went down the drain. And that was owned by a former governor of Lagos State, Marwa to be precise, retired military officer. So it's been really not really good business. The level of mortality in commercial aviation is very, very high. What we're seeing currently is a situation that the government, the previous administration, thought that it should intervene. And there was an aviation package via the central bank. So if we would fast track very quickly to next to where we are, that money came in to help them, but you saw how that went into another serious controversy. As of today, we don't know who's got what, who has what was being used for, and it's still very messy.
Yes. So it's a situation that has deteriorated over time, and something that could have easily been ameliorated, especially because of that bailout fund. So now the Central Bank of Nigeria's aviation bailout or rescue has for that particular sector hasn't really gone so well. Now we have AMCON.
I'm not too sure. Before we get into AMCON, Ari, I'm not too sure the central bank bailout could really have addressed all the problems of the domestic aviation sector. No, it's like the power sector bailout. See, we got underlying problems here. Rather than just throwing money at everything, hoping the money will solve our problems. Money had never solved Nigeria's problem. It will never solve it. It is good business sense and the business environment that will solve it. You're giving billions to the aviation sector. Thank you very much. Get a handshake for that. But hold on, look at the costs. How much does FAN charge, for example? How much goes to NIMASA, goes to the commercial aviation, what do you call the industry regulator, and a lot of other agencies in between that everybody is feeding fat on, in those days, 8,000 naira tickets. One-way ticket to Abuja, when you check, and I still have the stubs, when I looked, in those days, the ticket used to be about 3-4 pages. So, you know, as a journalist, I always take time to. So one day I sat down and I looked and I still have a few copies and I checked who takes what, and I found out that the real cost of the ticket that goes to the airline is less than 2,000 naira. The rest, about 6,000, goes to FAN. In fact, the amount of insurance, your life insurance, my life insurance, flying Lagos to Abuja on a ticket that is worth 40,000 naira, well, I will tell you it's less than 5,000 naira if you do the math. And I saw back then that the life insurance was less than 1,000 naira for my life, whereas FAN and the industry regulator, NIMASA, gets far more money than my life in the aircraft.
NIMASA is for the waterways.
It's for the waterways?
Yeah, so we're talking about FAN, we're talking about NAMA and every other. Oh,
NAMA, thank you very much. NIMASA seems to be in the news most of the time. But that's... I'm sorry, on a very serious, the Aviation Management Authority, I think it's between NAMA, FAN, and everybody else in between, they're getting more haircuts than the airlines are getting on their tickets. So how do they do this all dollar denominated, with the exception of salaries that they paid in naira? So
in other words, you're trying to make a case for the airline operators.
I'm making a case for the industry here.
So that what has happened is totally in line with what was a build-up to now.
To the problem.
Namely, you have tickets being charged for what, less than 5,000, and at the end of the day, you're paying 45,000.
You have agencies collecting that. Then you're going to do aircraft maintenance in dollars. You're going to buy the aircraft in dollars, all the spare parts in dollars, all the aviation services from landing to taking off and parking and whatever are all dollar denominated.
But you don't pay dollars for getting aviation fuel.
But you look at the cost of fuel globally in dollars. Therefore, when you take the exchange rate situation consideration into your business, you're getting drained because you're charging in naira. So don't forget, not too long ago, the international airline says, look, we're not going to charge naira for local flight because the local currency was sinking. To that extent, if it sinks for international carriers, how much will it sink for those who are in Nigeria? Then you pay all manner of fees to the federal, states, local governments, what have you. You pay branding fees, or costs, you pay so many fees.
So most of the management of the airlines are aware of all of these challenges and they have the options. But you have customers who need to fly from point A to point B, but you collect monies from them.
Yes.
And give them the assurance that when you do want to fly, you can fly.
Yes.
But you go to the airports right now and you have a situation of many passengers being stranded, or either their flights have been delayed or outright cancellations with no remorse, no text messages, no emails to say, we're sorry, this is happening at this time because these are the challenges that we're having. So it almost seems as if it's poor management.
The operating environment in Nigeria is one of the most difficult and annoying in the world. Do you know why banks were able to survive in Nigeria? Because they sit on cash. And they sit with a regulator that prints money and manages money. So that is a lot easier.
Bosin, some people are going to have a serious argument with you on this one because
I agree.
Even the airline, okay, for instance, you have, what's the big